soldier. That's it. Enough of that.
Roll. Okay. You ready?
Well, I think you wanted me to figure out what the best day of my life was. Well, I've had many great days. Practically every day is great. But in the early years of my saxophone playing back in the 30s and the early 40s, the guy that inspired me the most and inspired many, many people terrifically, and that was Louis Armstrong, and he was my idol. And I forget how it all worked out, but he was playing in a place called the Tick-Tock in Boston in March of 1944. And a friend of mine, Mayo Duca, was a terrific trumpet player, played just like Louis, only he was a little Italian guy, but he also loved Louis. And they used to correspond with each other. Louis would write Mayo letters from all over the world. Louis always wrote with his typewriter with green ink in the ribbon on canary yellow paper. And he had green ink in his pen. He always used green ink, canary yellow paper. I never did find out why, but anyway, it was rather unique. And anyway, Louis and Mayo got to be good friends up in Montreal, Canada. So when Louis was in Boston in 1944, of course, Mayo looked Louis up, and somehow or other they ended up in my house. Louis Armstrong, his girl singer, Velma Middleton, his valet, Doc Pugh, and another one of his trumpet players. I always remember his name because it was rather a strange name. His name was Jose Sapp. But anyway, they all ended up in my house about midnight, and we sat around and listened to Louis Armstrong records and drank some wine. I think we smoked a little grass back in those days because everybody knows Louis smoked marijuana his entire life. And we didn't see too much wrong with that, so my living room was rather blue with smoke. This is March of 1944. And I ended up cooking eggs, scrambled eggs and potatoes for everybody. I can't quite remember what we talked about, but Louis was interested in all the records of himself that I had. I had about maybe 50 or 60 7, 8 RPM records. I had them all cataloged. And we had all heard that somehow or other the fact that Louis Armstrong had a fabulous memory. Well, he met me that night for the first time. My name, of course, is Bob Oakes. And 3,000 miles away over here in San Diego, and 8 years later, 1952, Louis was playing down at the Trianon on Broadway, San Diego. And I had a date that night with this gal, and we went down. We stood in front of Louis' orchestra, playing all that great jazz. I think Earl Hines was supposed to be playing piano, but he couldn't make it for some reason. Joe Sullivan was on piano. Bonnie Picard, clarinet. I don't remember who else was playing with him. Probably Tyree Glenn or somebody like that. Maybe it was Tremor Young on trombone. But I was not about to go up to Louis after 8 years and say, "Hey, Louis, you remember me back in Boston, Malden?" He came out to my house because he'd been all over the world. He'd been playing for royalty and all kind of concerts, literally all over the world, you know, in that 8 years since I first saw him. So anyway, I finally was getting ready to leave the dance, and I decided I wouldn't embarrass him by seeing if he knew who I was. And some guy across, just going to walk down the stairs to leave the place, and I heard this guy yell, "Hey, Bob." Well, it turns out he's yelling at me. He came over and threw his arms around me and said, "How you doing, man?" It happened to be Doc Pugh, the valet. He said, "You got in the back room and say hello to Pops? I says, no, man, he wouldn't remember me and all that sort of thing. Anyway, he took me by the arm, brought me backstage, and there's Barney Bigard sitting over there, and there's Louis sitting over in the corner. And as I came in through the door, don't forget now, this is 8 years gone by. He only knew me for 9 hours. And he looks at me and he says, hello, Bob. He says, you still painting those albums? Those are the albums behind me, those old 78 RPM. So anybody that asks me, did Louis Armstrong have a good memory? I know, because he used it on me. It's fantastic. He must have been impressed to some extent, or he wouldn't have even remembered anything about it, you know. But speaking of one of my best nights, most memorable, was Louis Armstrong coming to my house, 32 Morris Street, Malden, Massachusetts. I just lived in a little bungalow there, nothing fancy. But Louis was just like the man next door or something like that. He just very casual. In fact, everybody was, and everybody had a nice time. We ate the scrambled eggs, and that was it. Oh, by the way, when Louis left, he gave me a little envelope, little brown envelope. And I wondered what's all this all about. And I opened it up. It was 6 big fat marijuana joints. I said, thank you very much. And anyway, life is still a gas, and Louis is still beautiful. Well, you wanted to hear about garage sales. Half the junk in my house comes from garage sales. When I was in the cemetery business, my friend Bill Griffin, who was the late Bill Griffin, he was a heck of a good bass player. He and I both worked at Greenwood. And on Saturdays, we'd get in my car or in his car and drive around Pacific Beach or wherever, looking for people out cutting the grass and all of that. And we'd stop. We'd flip a coin to see who was going to get him, you know. We'd jump out and ask him if he wanted to buy a grave and all of that. But that's the main purpose on Saturday morning was to find people we could sell cemetery property to. But it boiled down to the fact that we'd stop at these garage sales at the same time. He kind of liked to look around and see what was there. So it got to the point where we didn't look for the guy cutting the grass to sell a plot to. We were looking for garage sales. And so that's where a lot of this stuff came. That, what kind of fish is that up there hanging on the ceiling? Angel fish, I think. Anyway, I got that for 25 cents. That old straw hat over there, somebody wanted $2 for the hat. His $2, I'll take the hat. And that red lantern hanging over there, Chuck Rother brought that down. He had it out in his garage out in the back. So I hung it up. So people knew that I like these strange and funny looking things around here. See that picture of the old man up there, the oil painting? I bought that from an old lady. She was about 90 years old. And she talked to me out of giving you $9 for that painting. And it's not signed, but it's a heck of a good painting. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was maybe worth a few $100 or maybe more, who knows. But anyway, I got it for $9. I like it. And I just kind of hung these things on the wall or on the ceiling. I've got all of these old antique sheet music on the ceiling there. They were no good in the closet in the back room. Nobody could see them, so I just tacked them onto the ceiling. They're coming apart now, but it served their purpose well. Most everybody got a big kick out of my ceiling here. And so now people keep bringing me things, but I don't have any place to put them anymore. Myrna brought me a nice poster about some function up in Los Angeles or somewhere. I like to hang it, but I got no room for it. But and I don't like everything I got in this house here. Each one has a story, more or less. That bunch of peppers, hot peppers, hanging up there next to the little banjo. Pat Oakley brought those over. He grew them himself. He figured I was going to eat them. Well, they've been hanging there for 10 years as a little decoration for my pad. And those pots and pans over there, we went through a period of time when we had our jam session. People wanted to join in and make some noise, so I gave them these old pans. They would get a stick and beat on those pans and use it as part of the rhythm section. So that's where they came from. There's an old World War I mask, gas mask, that Leonard Cooper laid on me, so I hung it up there. So when you look at it all, individually these things don't mean much, but put them all together and look at them and pick up on the balance of the entire situation, and all of a sudden you realize the whole thing turns into an expression of art. Any questions?
What's one of the best buys you ever got in a garage sale?
I don't know, but my daughter goes up and down the alleys on trash day, just as a hobby, getting old furniture and all kind of things out of the people are throwing away, and a lot of people are moving out of town. Got throw some pretty good stuff out. She's showing me some fur coat, bunch of nice brand new clothes she finds. But her best find was a couple of weeks ago. She found a box about a foot square, and inside the box was another little box. Inside the little box was some earrings, and she was glad to get those diamond earrings, but you know nobody would think they were real. She took them to an appraisal. Somebody appraised them at one of the jewelry stores. He said they're worth about $650. She couldn't believe it, so she took them to another evaluator. I guess that's a good word. And he said these are worth at least $600. She still couldn't believe it, so she took it to a third one, and he said the same thing, $600. So she got $600 diamonds out of somebody's trash. They probably didn't realize what they were throwing away. But anyway, now I forgot the question. You say ready? I just having to think. Artwork, oil paintings, acrylic painting, whatever, whether it's realism or abstract or surrealistic or whatever, is comparable to music. They are first cousins. Music, some music is realism, some is surrealism, others non-objective, abstract. It's the same way with painting. One is visual, as I mentioned, the other one is audible, but they go hand in hand. And I never painted anything in my life. There's little paintings that I've done, but I didn't have Miles Davis or Louis Armstrong or some good jazz in the background, kind of setting the mood for what I'm going to attempt to paint. And I always respected artists who painted landscapes and barns and pastures and seascapes and all of that sort of thing. That's a real talent. But I have never been able to get with it, but I did like to use colors and forms, circles, straight lines, and see if I could get some kind of a balance on a piece of masonite or whatever, to the point where I stop, because I look at it and I say, my golly, that's a masterpiece. I may be the only one that thinks that, but so what? That's the only one I'm trying to please really is myself. Anybody else likes the painting, that's a bonus. There have been quite a few people that express the fact that they like what I do and so forth, but I've never sold any. I sold a couple, $10 a piece. I think one of them went to Honolulu. But to me, it's just fun working with colors. And in a little while, I'll show you some photographs of the evolution of one of my paintings from the beginning to the ending. I've got about 24 camera shots of it at different different points in time of expressing what I'm trying to get on canvas or masonite. I don't know if that's very understandable, but that's sort of the way I feel about music in relation to visual art. They're, like I said, they're first cousins, inseparable. A lot of the stuff that I play myself is unobjective, abstract, like you're listening to right now. And then again, sometimes when I play Body and Soul or I Serenity or one of those tunes, it's objective area of music. The unobjective, abstract comes at the spur of the moment. And I don't know where it comes from. It comes from the cosmic forces, I guess. It comes down through me and out into the world. People listen to it, and they either like it or they don't like it. Some people like that sort of thing, some don't. Just like some people don't like spinach. Or ex-President Bush didn't like broccoli. Too bad. Was it broccoli or something else? Big deal. He wouldn't eat broccoli. When Jack Kennedy was president, he ate practically nothing but clam chowder because he's from Cape Cod, Mass. By the way, I might mention right here that you asked me one of my best days in my life was with Louis and all of that, but if you want to ask me what I miss most about the East Coast of New England, that I really do miss is fried clams. I'm a clam expert. And the best clams you can get around Boston come from Essex or Ipswich, which is about 40 miles north of Boston, right near Gloucester, Massachusetts. But those are the best. And I heard now that half of the clams they sell in Boston are what they call clam strips. But clam strips are for the birds. You got to have the whole clam, the belly and everything else, and then you get something to chew on. These clams, clam shit, I should say. It's like eating rubber bands. I don't know how I get into that from painting and artwork and sound and all that thing. We get into the fried clam scene. But I'm a clam expert, so I had to get that in. I know that everything is good and life is still a gas. Period.
You must have seen a lot of stuff out of this window.
All kinds of things. I saw 2 or 3 rescues last week. Lifeguards had to go out there riptide. The guys couldn't get in on the boards. Young people that hadn't surfed too long, they didn't know how to get out. I've seen bodies out there washed up from the ocean. I've seen a lot of shipwrecks, small ships, sailing boats and others. Anyways, it's very interesting down there. Of course, to say nothing of the drug bust. It's not so bad now. A few years ago, it was pretty bad. They used to sell a lot of drugs down here. But look at, if there's nothing that I'm interested on television, I just turn it off and stand up and look out the window. I got my own television, live television, right in my front yard. And to say nothing of the pretty girls, with my binoculars, I see something down there on the sand. I said, man, I got to get the glass on that one. I fell in love many times.
King of the world that night. I'm gonna walk down here, stand on that little bluff and walk.
How you doing, Henry?
Good, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
You get your wind blowing the wiggle.
What a hell
English day.
It's like just like an August family day or something.
Right.
God, it's out of
What are you
control.
looking?
That's not good. You gotta get all the way. You gotta dunk.
Are you gonna do the room? You know, a story I'd like for him to retell is confirming the Pee Wee Russell Mexico City connection. Did you talk to him about that at all? That's on the other tape. I watched it last night. Monster Day.
Oh boy. Well, I tell you, it's good to be off of work.
You know who?
I mean, I've been through it. I'm out to pasture right now.
Damn, you're making me jealous. Did you ever see a movie called Born on the 4th of July?
No,
No?
it's always in there. You wouldn't want to bet on it.
Who's the woman that was here? With a hat? She spilled beer in the
You know, this used to be called years ago muggles.
Muggles?
Muggles.
M-U-G?
M-U-G. In fact, Louis Armstrong got an old 78 RPM record, Muggles.
Yeah? Wow. I like to use that one. I like to use different words, that's for sure.
It went through quite a few changes until it got to be pot. I never did find out where that arrived at. We used to call it jive, reefers, muggles.
I don't like the word pot. It sounds, that's too coarse for me. Grass or weed. Actually, I don't like weed too much either.
Gentlemen, for questioning, if you'll just sit on those over there, that'll be good. Those two chairs, maybe bring them up. That'll be good for questioning.
Okay.
Talking to the big dad.
Just set it down there, it's all right. Henry, you can set it over there if you want.
Actually, I was going to take a look at it.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. 50 cents.
These are yours, right?
Yeah, that's the evolution of one of my paintings there. I just taped it every once in a while.
You see the numbering? The stages.
You know what else you can do, Henry? Would be very helpful.
Sure. No, I don't.
So, sit over here. Jeff, you're prepared to begin the questioning, right? You have some stuff you want to talk about? Look through there and find some photos. We don't have the video here, the art shoot video. Look through and maybe find some things that we can have a look at. You know, it just didn't come to mind
Because I just
this
had
morning.
them all stuck with the PCR.
Perfectly where they would be, it should be.
I just took mine out of
Yeah.
my pack on my way here.
Okay, because I'm gonna want to just have Bob look at some.
Those paintings are now,
Killer seed right here.
those,
Best seat in the house.
No doubt about it. That friend of mine that came by here with us that Sunday night, that big tall guy, Tom,
Yeah, oh yeah.
he had time of his life. He got to sit right here.
Is that right?
Turning
Where
on.
does he live? San Diego?
No, he used to live in OB with me. He moved out from here from Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
And so he lives in Minneapolis right now.
I bet he wishes he was
He's
right
coming
here.
back out here, definitely.
Great.
He's taking fine art at college, and he's just about done.
Oh, all right.
So he's a real good artist, too. I
Huh.
like his stuff, I think. I don't have any of it, but
Okay. We're going to Bob. We're going to take a second if you want to relax. Or I think you're probably relaxed.
It may not look like it, but right now I'm relaxed.
want to give it one more try?
Why not?
A little loose at the end there.
Okay. Don't worry about that.
Can you reach a pen for my mesh pocket, the front pocket?
Pick up.
Okay, what we're gonna do is pull that chair over a little bit. Pull the chair over a little bit this way.
Yeah, you're going to stay there?
No, you pull the chair this way. Henry's gonna be here. So when Bob talks to you,
Seems
it's a
definitely
little too far. Yeah, not too far. I'm just gonna set this down. Get to work here.
You get some water?
Kleenex
Clean it.
in the bathroom. 2 pieces. I'm going big on the weekend. Thank you.
You got yourself a beer supply there, so you're all.
You want me to pull some over that way for you to be flipping through?
I was watching the tape that we made the first time that we came down and interviewed
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And there's one story in there I want you to retell. It basically surrounds how sometimes you weren't sure about some of the stories the spaceman told you, but you found out eventually that the Pee Wee Russell
Oh, yeah.
had actually been in Mexico City, so you know that was for
Yeah.
something you can kind
A
of
lot of this stuff is bullshit,
right,
but
right,
it's beautiful bullshit.
right.
But
So once we get rolling, if you start in that point, I think I'll ask the question again. But I just
Yeah.
want to kind of give you an idea of what I'm thinking about, and I'll try not to interrupt you because I think is it better to let it run for a while, right, without me interrupting at all because you can't keep me on the tape.
It's fine. It doesn't
Right.
matter. You can interrupt it too.
Okay.
I feel like I'm on the Donahue show.
Well, we want to be on the Donahue show, so you better get ready for it.
Okay, you guys relax because I've got to.